Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so glad you could join us today because we have a genuinely fascinating cultural evolution lined up for you.
We really do.
Yeah, our mission today is to explore the multi-generational footprint of a story that honestly you likely think you already know. We're talking about National Velvet.
Right.
And we're pulling all our insights today from a single comprehensive source. It's the detailed Wikipedia article on the original 1935 novel written by Enid Bagnold.
Which is such a rich document.
It is. We're going to extract the core thematic elements from this classic narrative, and we really want to explore exactly how a deceptively simple story about a 14-year-old girl and a horse transformed into this expansive decades-long franchise.
Exactly.
And more importantly, we want to look at what this narrative teaches you and me about the pure pursuit of a singular ambition versus, the overwhelming noise of public fame. So, okay, let's unpack this, because going into this material, I had always categorized National Velvet as just that quintessential Elizabeth Taylor film.
Oh, absolutely. Most people do.
Right. Finding out it originated as an incredibly rich, deeply thematic 1930s novel completely shifted my perspective.
It really reframes the entire legacy when you examine that source material. I mean, the 1935 novel by Enid Bagnold establishes this really robust philosophical foundation that the later adaptations iterate on. But the original text possesses a distinct, almost a subversive spirit.
Subversive is a great word for it.
Yeah, it's far more than just a sentimental story about a child who happens to like ponies. It operates as a brilliant character study of quiet, relentless ambition.
And what's compelling about that starting point is how it strips away the typical hero archetypes. Let's set the scene for you. The narrative places us somewhere in the late 1920s, situated in a small English coastal village down in Sussex.
Right.
And we are introduced to our protagonist, Velvet Brown. And the author goes out of her way to ensure Velvet is not portrayed as some, fearless, flawless prodigy.
Not at all.
She is a 14-year-old girl. And the text specifically describes her as high-strung, shy, and nervous. She even suffers from a delicate stomach. She's the daughter of a local butcher, but her entire internal world revolves around this grand, almost unreasonable dream of one day owning many horses.
Which is an inherently vulnerable position for a protagonist. She's an underdog in every physical and socioeconomic sense. But to truly understand the genesis of Velvet's drive, you have to look closely at her family dynamic.
Yes, the mother.
Exactly, particularly the unspoken history of her mother. Mrs. Brown is characterized in the text as a wise, taciturn woman. However, she harbors an extraordinary past.
It's so cool.
It is. Long before she settled into the life of a butcher's wife in a quiet Sussex village, she achieved something monumental. She successfully swam the English Channel.
That detail, it alters the entire context of the household.
Mm-hmm.
She possesses this staggering athletic achievement, but she doesn't leverage it for constant validation. It just exists, as a matter of fact, in their family history.
What's fascinating here is how the novel places such a deliberate focus on the capacity of ordinary people, and very specifically, ordinary women, to accomplish extraordinarily grueling physical feats.
Yeah.
And keep the timeline in mind. Enid Bagnold published this in 1935, setting it in the late 1920s. For the era, having a narrative so fiercely dedicated to female physical endurance and quiet strength was remarkably progressive.
Definitely.
The mother's past achievement functions as a silent, continuous signal to Velvet, and really to the reader, that the boundary between the impossible and the possible is highly permeable.
And that theme of authentic, youthful capability actually bled into the real-world creation of the book, which I found incredible. Our source notes that the first edition of this novel was illustrated by the author's own daughter.
Lorian Jones.
Yes, Lorian Jones. And she was born in 1921. So if you do the math, when the book was published in 1935, the illustrator was exactly 14 years old. She was the precise age of the protagonist.
That's amazing.
Right. Letting a 14-year-old visually define a best-selling novel about a 14-year-old girl adds a phenomenal layer of authenticity to the project.
It perfectly mirrors the internal themes of the text. Young women stepping up to deliver something substantial without needing to be older or more traditionally qualified. And that brings us to the inciting incident of the narrative, which is rooted in recognizing raw, unrefined potential.
The moment the trajectory of Velvet's life shifts. So Velvet and her best friend, Meet Taylor, who goes by Michael, are out one day, and they witness an event that defies logic.
Yeah, the jump.
They observe a horse named the Piebald literally leaped over a 5-foot-high cobbled fence simply to escape a field. For anyone who doesn't spend time around equestrians, a 5-foot jump over uneven solid stone is a staggering display of athletic power.
It's an explosive display of raw ability. But before we follow the horse, we need to analyze Mee Taylor's role in this equation.
Right, he's crucial.
He is. On paper, Mina appears to be just Velvet's father's assistant at the butcher shop. But his background provides the critical infrastructure for the plot. He formerly worked in stables, giving him an intimate working-class knowledge of the horse racing industry.
Yeah.
Furthermore, and this is a brilliant piece of narrative connective tissue, Mee's father was the swimming coach who helped Velvet's mother cross the English Channel all those years ago.
It's as if these two families are inextricably linked by a shared destiny to facilitate impossible physical endeavors. So they witness the piebald execute this massive jump, and Mee Taylor tells Velvet, and this is a direct quote from the text, "A horse like that win the National."
The Grand National Steeplechase.
Exactly. And that single sentence completely rewires Velvet's ambitions. She develops an absolute obsession with this idea.
Which is audacious, considering she doesn't even own the animal yet.
Minor detail.
Right. But the novel then orchestrates a sequence of events where Velvet's fortunes align with her ambition. First, she unexpectedly inherits several horses from one of her father's customers.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then, as if the universe is actively rewarding her singular focus, she actually wins the piebald in an upcoming local raffle. She secures the very horse she is fixated on.
But the acquisition is just the prerequisite for the actual labor. She begins by riding him in a local gymkhana, which is a community equestrian event featuring various games and races.
Right, a testing ground.
That initial test goes well enough that Velvet and Mee make the conscious, calculated decision to pursue the ultimate goal. They begin scheming to enter the piebald into the Grand National at the legendary Aintree Racecourse.
And for you listening, it's important to understand that a steeplechase isn't just a fast sprint on a flat track.
Oh, no.
It is a punishing distance race featuring diverse, highly dangerous fence and dish obstacles. They start rigorously training the horse specifically for this brutal environment.
The physical training is only half the battle, though. The most significant roadblock is the institutional structure of the racing world itself. In the 1920s, a 14-year-old girl simply cannot walk up and register to ride in the Grand National.
The gender barriers are absolute.
Absolutely rigid. So they have to subvert the system entirely. Mio taps into his historical connections within the horse training and racing community, and he manages to procure forged clearance documents for Velvet.
The nature of this deception is where you really see the author's sharp commentary on the societal rules of the era. Velvet doesn't just tuck her hair under a cap and pretend to be a local farm boy.
No, she goes all out.
She does. She enters the race under the alias James Taskey, who is documented as a Russian jockey.
That specific choice of disguise is highly strategic.
It really is. By inventing a foreign identity, particularly a Russian one, she provides a built-in excuse for being aloof, avoiding conversation, and hiding her voice from the English officials.
It's so smart.
It highlights the absurdity of the era's restrictions that an English girl had to invent an entirely fabricated foreign male identity just to be permitted to test her physical skills on a racecourse.
It's a brilliant logistical workaround. And it sets the stage for the climax of the novel. The Grand National at Aintree is notoriously punishing. It tests the absolute limits of endurance, requiring both the animal and the rider to operate in perfect, exhausting synchronization.
And spoiling a narrative from 1935, Velvet actually wins the race.
She does?
She and the piebald crossed the finish line first in what is arguably the toughest steeplechase in the world. But Bagnall doesn't let the triumph stand as a simple, uncomplicated victory. It is immediately followed by a stark reality check.
Right. She wins the grueling race, but she's disqualified. And what's crucial here is that she isn't initially disqualified because she's a girl.
No.
She's disqualified on a strict technicality. The steeplechase has exacted such a severe physical toll on her that, due to pure, unadulterated exhaustion, she physically cannot maintain her seat. She slides off the saddle and dismounts before reaching the designated enclosure.
Which perfectly aligns with her established character traits. She was never portrayed as superhuman. She's the nervous teenager with a delicate stomach who just forced her body miles past its biological limit.
Exactly.
When she collapses, they rush her to the first aid station. And naturally, that medical intervention is where her true gender is uncovered by the racing officials.
The fallout from this revelation is instantaneous and chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
The established racing community is simultaneously dismayed that a teenage girl just outperformed their elite jockeys and completely captivated by the novelty of her story.
Oh, they eat it up.
Velvet and the piebald are thrust into immediate, overwhelming celebrity status.
The source notes they are practically besieged by the sudden notoriety. We're talking relentless reporters, newsreel cameras, and even lucrative merchandising offers. It transitions from a personal athletic endeavor into a full-blown media circus. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it deliberately mirrors the psychological burden her mother endured. The text specifically draws a parallel between Velvet's situation and her mother's unsought fame following the English Channel swim.
That's a great point.
Both women achieved something monumental purely for the internal challenge and the love of the feat itself, only to find themselves drowning in a public that views their success as a commodity to be consumed.
That internal motivation is the absolute core of the narrative. Velvet's reaction to this onslaught of fame is fierce and unambiguous. She categorically objects to the publicity. She has zero desire to be a star.
None at all.
She refers to the piebald as a creature of glory and vehemently argues that his athletic triumph should not be cheapened in the sensationalized press. She's insistent on one central truth. She claims she did not win the race, the horse did. Her only ambition was to facilitate his place in history.
It demonstrates a profound level of emotional maturity. She successfully decouples her personal ambition from the public's relentless need to sensationalize it. Ultimately, the National Hunt Committee conducts an investigation into the deception. They find no evidence of malicious fraud regarding the horse's capabilities, and they exonerate the participant.
Thankfully.
Yeah, the Brown family is permitted to recede back into their quiet lives. As the Wikipedia article elegantly phrases it, Velvet moves on to her next adventures, secure in her own quiet accomplishment.
It's a remarkably grounded and satisfying conclusion for the novel. But ironically, for the world at large, the commercialization of National Velvet was just getting started.
Oh, absolutely.
Velvet may have successfully rejected the media circus in the world of the book, but in the real world, the entertainment industry immediately recognized the lucrative potential of her story.
A narrative containing that much inherent spectacle and emotional resonance was destined for adaptation. In 1944, a prominent film adaptation was released, and its impact on the cultural landscape was unprecedented.
Unprecedented is the right word, especially when you examine the casting. You have a 12-year-old Elizabeth Taylor catapulted to international stardom in the role of Velvet. The cast also features Mickey Rooney, Donald Crisp, Anne Revere, and a young Angela Lansbury, with a screenplay penned by Helen Deutsch. It was a premium Hollywood production that forever altered how the public visualized the story.
And its cinematic legacy is undeniable. Decades later, in 2008, the American Film Institute voted this 1944 adaptation as the 9th best American film in the sports genre.
Wow.
Securing a top 10 spot more than 60 years after release speaks volumes about its cultural staying power.
Here's where it gets really interesting regarding the practicalities of that film adaptation. We discussed earlier that the horse in the novel is named the piebald, which is a British equestrian term for a pinto horse, specifically one with large, irregular patches of black and white.
Right.
However, when Hollywood began production, the horse they procured for the shoot was solid-colored. They couldn't accurately refer to a solid horse as a piebald without alienating anyone who knew horses, so the filmmakers instituted a pragmatic change. They simply shortened his name to the Pie.
That's a layer.
It is. The source notes that even in Bagnold's original text, the horse was occasionally abbreviated to the Pie, so the adaptation managed to sidestep a visual inconsistency while remaining technically faithful to the book.
It's an elegant logistical fix. But the momentum of that film ensured the property wouldn't remain confined to cinema. It rapidly expanded into other dominant forms of mid-century media.
By October of 1949, the story was adapted into a half-hour broadcast on the CBS radio network's Hallmark Playhouse, starring Roddy McDowall. And then, television executives saw an opportunity for serialization.
Of course they did.
From 1960 to 1962, the anti-commercial novel was transformed into a 30-minute American television series on NBC. It ran for a staggering 52 episodes. Though in a bizarre departure from both the book and the film, the television producers entirely discarded the name The Pie and simply renamed The Horse King.
It is a striking contrast to see a finite, intensely focused narrative about rejecting the spotlight, stretched and reshaped to fit the demands of weekly syndicated television. Yet, the fundamental appeal, a young person dedicating themselves to an animal to achieve the seemingly impossible, clearly resonated across every format.
And that resonance carried well beyond the 1960s. In 1978, Hollywood decided to update the franchise for a new era with a theatrical sequel titled International Velvet.
The 1978 sequel shifts the paradigm from an unauthorized steeplechase to sanctioned international competition. The narrative follows an orphaned American teenager named Sarah Brown, played by Tatum O'Neal.
Okay.
Following the death of her parents, Sarah relocates to England to live with her aunt, who is, predictably, a grown-up Velvet Brown, played in this iteration by Nanette Newman.
They maintain the thematic and literal lineage by having Sarah and her Aunt Velvet purchase a direct descendant of the pie. Because Sarah hails from America, they christen the new horse Arizona Pie, honoring her home state.
However, the athletic target for this generation is significantly different. Sarah is selected to represent Britain, not in a steeplechase, but in the equine three-day Olympic event.
Oh, wow.
For context, this is a grueling, multidisciplinary test. It requires mastery in dressage for precise control, cross-country for speed and endurance over solid obstacles, and show jumping to test agility and recovery. She trains for this complex event under a character named Captain Johnson, portrayed by Anthony Hopkins.
Having a prestigious actor like Anthony Hopkins step into the training role really elevates the gravitas of the sequel. Now, Sarah faces a different set of hurdles than her aunt did. During her Olympic pursuit, she finds herself distracted by an American competitor named Scott Saunders.
Right.
But despite the interpersonal complexities, she maintains her focus on the rigorous demands of the three disciplines and ultimately secures the Olympic victory.
The sequel then concludes with a poignant callback to the original 1935 themes. Following her victory, Sarah becomes engaged to Scott and prepares to return to her life. But before she leaves, she presents her Olympic gold medal to her Aunt Velvet as a keepsake. It brings the concepts of ambition, inherited legacy, and the true value of the achievement full circle.
It's a highly intentional passing of the baton. So what does this all mean for you, navigating your own life right now?
Yeah.
Why should you dedicate time to understanding the evolution of a horse racing novel from the 1930s?
I believe the core narrative of National Velvet serves as an enduring masterclass in decoupling your personal achievements from the demand for public validation. Consider Velvet Brown's original journey. She formulated a highly specific, borderline impossible goal to prove the inherent greatness of her horse. She executed the grueling physical labor. She intelligently bypassed an institutional system designed to exclude her, and she secured the exact outcome she desired. But when society attempted to commodify her achievement to transform her sweat into merchandising and sensationalized headlines, she flatly rejected the transaction.
She protected the purity of her endeavor.
Exactly. For you listening, whether you are developing a complex new skill, building a business, or pursuing a personal milestone, it is a vital reminder to anchor your satisfaction in the work itself. Pursue your ambitions for the quiet, internal reward of the achievement, and actively guard against the distracting, often toxic noise of the applause.
It's about retaining ownership of your success. Do the difficult work because the work holds intrinsic value to you, not for the metaphorical newsreel at the finish line.
Precisely. Though, analyzing this entire multi-generational history we've unpacked today, this raises an important question. We've discussed at length how Velvet Brown fiercely protected her horse from being cheapened by merchandising and public consumption. Yet, Enid Bagnold's novel, a text fundamentally rooted in this anti-commercial, anti-fame philosophy, was eagerly consumed by the entertainment industry and transformed into decades of Hollywood blockbusters, 52 episodes of syndicated television, radio plays, and international sequels.
It's a massive contradiction.
It creates a fascinating paradox. But consider how this paradox applies to our modern landscape. Today, we live in an era dominated by social media and the creator economy, where the prevailing wisdom dictates that every personal hobby, every quiet achievement, and every private passion should be immediately filmed, monetized, and broadcast to an audience.
Oh, that is so true.
In an environment that aggressively demands we turn our lives into content, is it even possible to be a Velvet Brown today? Can true, quiet ambition survive the internet? Or are we all eventually forced to sell our own version of the piebald to the crowd? It's a challenging dynamic to consider as you navigate your own goals.
That is a phenomenal layer to add to this discussion. The tension between private achievement and the modern pressure to monetize everything is something we all grapple with daily. You've definitely given us a profound concept to reflect on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the surprisingly complex world of National Velvet. We hope you gained some valuable, actionable perspective today, and we will catch you on the next one.